WPS and PQR Mastery 2-2 Non-Essential Variables Explained. So with non-essential variables, we're talking about if we change this variable, it's not going to affect the fusion zone, the weld metal that's been deposited, or the heat affected zone, or the base material. It's not going to affect any of that. So that's why we call them non-essential variables. But even though they're non-essential, we do have to address them. So with a non-essential variable, this is a parameter that when we change it, we don't have to do a requalification. We don't have to do another test plate. So this isn't going to affect the mechanical properties or the integrity of the weld deposit. And we don't have to requalify. So this is where it tells us in ASME Section IX, this tells us the conditions in which a change as described, specific variables. It doesn't affect the mechanical properties of the joint. And it tells us we can find this in QG 101. But it also tells us here that a procedure specification may be editorially revised to change non-essential variables to fall outside of our previous ranges. So that would be, hey, maybe we need to use a special type of wire brush on our job. The wire brush isn't going to affect our weld deposit, but we do need to provide our welders with guidance and work instructions, because a WPS, a welding procedure specification, is a work instruction. And these non-essential variables are items that the people that write the code think are important enough that you need to bring it up and tell your welders, hey, you need to either do this or not do it. You need to, wire brush it 7 times and whatever. So that's why we have it listed here, is because it needs to be addressed and you need to provide guidance. But if we change it editorially, change something on there, we revise it on the WPS and put out another revision and move on. We don't have to do another qualification test. So here is where we would find them in these tables on QW 200s, 250s. So you can see we've got essential, supplementary essential, and non-essential variables. So there's a whole laundry list of these things. Current and polarity for this one. We're talking shielded metal arc welding. Current and polarity, we need to address it, but if we change it, it's not the end of the world. We don't have to requalify. It lists down here on QW 410 technique. String or weave. Let's say my original WPS says we're only going to do a stringer beads, and then we change it to a weave. We can do that. We don't have to do a requalification. We're not affecting the deposition of the weld metal and the mechanical properties of that or the heat affected zone. So here are some examples of non-essential variables that we might reasonably run into. The groove design. If we do, a single bevel weld and then we go to a double bevel weld, we're good to go. We don't have to qualify a new PQR because the weld doesn't know what kind of weld joint it's going into. Here's another picture where we've got some J grooves and then we're just going to a single V groove. We don't need to qualify a new PQR for this situation. Here's another one where we're talking about going from a single V to a single V with backing. The single V on the left side is open root. If we go from open root and we add backing, we don't have to requalify because we haven't done anything to affect the mechanical properties of the weld metal, heat affected zone, or the base metal. Here would be another example. Let's say I qualify a welding procedure with 1/8 inch filler material, 6011, and I put that on the weld procedure specification, my work instructions for the welders. Then the welders come back to me and say, Gary, you're a freaking idiot. We will never finish this job. We need 532. I'm like, all right, I'm an idiot. Let's fix this. So I go back into the Welding Procedure Specification, which is a work instruction for welders. I go in there, I change it and say, okay, we're now able to use 1/8 of an inch and 5/32 of an inch filler material. All right, we haven't done anything that's going to affect the deposition of the weld metal into the weld joint. The mechanical properties are going to come out the same. The heat affected zone is going to be the same. So we can do an editorial change and do changes to filler metal and adjust it if we need to. We haven't affected the mechanical properties. Change in position for Section 9, for the most part, change in position. I qualify in flat. That WPS is able to be used in the 6G, the 2G, the 4G, whatever. The flat, horizontal, overhead, that 6G pipe, we can use it in all of them. The weld metal doesn't know which, or the weld metal doesn't care which position it's being deposited into the weld joint. It just knows it's going in there. So change in position. Now, when we get to people qualifications, that's a whole different story, but that's a story for another day. So here would be some examples of things that we would address. In that green square up there, example of a bevel weld. When I write a WPS, I might put in one example of a bevel weld, and then I'll put in some kind of wiggle words that say that, we can use sketches or production drawings, or, where we can use something else, that can be on a router. We've addressed it, but we're just leaving ourselves an opening, so we're not just tied to what's here. Here you've got the filler metals. We can go in there and adjust the filler metals with, the sizes of filler materials we're going to use in that yellow box. And then in the two red boxes, the upper red box is positions. Yeah, we can change that. And then technique. Most of this stuff is non-essential. Peening, there at the bottom. I don't know what peening is. Well, I kind of do, but I've never dealt with it. It says here we're not using it. But if we switched and decided we were using it, that would be perfectly legal. And you can see that lower light blue box where we've got our diameter of our filler wire, our gas metal arc welding wire that we're going to use. Yeah, 030, 035, and 045. We can adjust those. Add them, take them away. We're good. So with the WPS format, at a minimum, when we write a WPS, we've got to hit the specific essential and non-essential variables for that specific process. And I've had a couple of, discussions or fights with people, generally rookies coming into the game, the welding game, and, well, they think it's a non-essential. We don't have to address it. Yes, you have to address it because the WPS is providing work instructions for the welder. That's the big idea behind the WPS. It isn't just paperwork that we do to, keep everybody happy. No, it's helping your welders be successful. That's the whole idea. It's a work instruction. And these are items that the code committee said, hey, you need to address this stuff. You need to put it on there so that your welders know what to do with this. Are we peening or not peening? What size filler metal are we using? Those kinds of things. And we need to address those on there, along with the essential variables. So, bottom line, non-essential variables, they're important. We need to address them. But if we address them, we can come back and fix things. If there's, some kind of, expansion of the scope of work or whatever that we need to do, maybe we need bigger or smaller filler material on our welding procedure. We can do that. We can address that. Maybe we need special wire brushes. We can do that. We just have to address it, revise our documentation, and we're good to go. Any questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns? Gary A. Pace, PE Welding Engineer, Katy, Texas.